Good evening. I welcome you all to this council meeting. Please ensure that your mobile telephones are switched off and placed on silent. Do all councillors have a copy of the agenda papers? I'll now outline the emergency evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, please exit via the nearest fire exit and congregate in the car park. The council has a duty of care to protect everyone attending this meeting. Please ensure that you maintain social distancing throughout the course of the meeting and adhere to the one-way system in place. It is requested that face masks be worn when moving around the building, though you may remove these when you're seated if you wish. Please sit only in your allocated seats and do not adjust the position of the desk, as these have been measured to ensure the maximum possible distancing is maintained. Hand sanitizers available on your desks. Please ensure that you use this regularly and before and after touching the surfaces. Officers will be monitoring all aspects of the meeting from a health and safety perspective. If there are any concerns for the safety of participants, I will be alerted and the meeting will be adjourned. As chair, I have a personal responsibility with regard to the safe running of the meeting, and this will be treated with the utmost seriousness. The meeting is being live streamed to enable public access. Due to the nature of the meeting, voting will take place via roll call. Please ensure that your microphones are muted when you are not speaking to prevent any disruption. Thank you for attending this extraordinary council meeting to approve the pay policy statement. The calling of this EGM was made in consultation with the monitoring officer, Elizabeth Heath, and the interim chief executive, Philip Spur, and Barry Khan, solicitor and assistant chief executive, Legal and Democratic Services at North Yorkshire County Council. In accordance with legislation contained in the Localism Act of 2011, the pay policy statement must be approved by the 31st of March. For the purposes of clarity, before the debate begins, I wish to advise Council that I have received the following legal, HR and monitoring officers' advice. The pay policy statement, which relates to all officers, is a statement of fact. Members are asked to approve the statement, which details the remuneration paid to officers under binding contracts of employment. These cannot be amended. The pay policy statement was approved by the Policy and Resources Committee on the 3rd of February 2022 and referred to full council on the 17th of February. Full council referred the pay policy statement to the Policy and Resources Committee on the 17th of March for further consideration. All issues relating to the pay policy statement were available for consideration at the Policy and Resources Committee meeting on the 17th of March by members of the committee. All questions asked were answered, including questions relating to specific salaries. Further, Harry Rashid, Head of HR at North Yorkshire Council, has briefed and made himself available to all group leaders who may have had questions on the pay policy statement. We're further advised through the monitoring officer, legal and HR professionals that the appointment of all staff is in accordance with employment law and HR policies and procedures. The Chief Executive has delegated authority under the Constitution to recruit and manage staff under her control, and in particular to authorise pay and conditions, including honoraria, all senior officers' posts referred to within this pay policy statement fall within this delegation. When debating this item, I would ask that you are mindful of employment law and the duty of care Ryedale Council owes to its staff. I will adjourn the meeting and take advice when needed to ensure that these principles are complied with by all elected members. Elected members should note that the statement has been updated by the Section 151 officer and head of HR to reflect the factual accuracy and current salaries. I would ask all members to be mindful of the Members' Code of Conduct, in particular the requirement to treat all persons fairly and with respect during the course of this meeting and in the debate. Thank you. Item agenda 2 is apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Brackstone, Delaney, Garbutt-Moore, Hope, Mackenzie, King, Wass and Windress.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Item agenda 3 is the declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest to declare under the Members' Code of Conduct? No. Thank you. Item agenda 4, the pay policy statement. Agenda item 4 is to consider a resolution to approve the 2022-23 pay policy statement, including the amendment related to the increase in salary to the monitoring officer's post. Councillor Keel, would you please briefly introduce this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I will be brief. I think probably members like many of you here this evening, and like me at one stage, probably believe that the Council's pay policy had been agreed at the budget meeting in February. But as a member of Council asked that it be further discussed at the Policy Resources Committee, it has been argued that it needs to be approved as a separate item by this full Council. Hence, we have this one item only extraordinary meeting tonight. The separate paper has been provided by our Head of HR for members, which explains how directors' pay is determined, and it is comprehensive and self-explanatory. I will emphasise a few points from that report, but at this stage I just want to make that brief introduction. And the proposed resolution to Council this evening is that Council approves the Ryedale District Council pay policy 2022-23 as detailed on pages 3 to 8, including the amendment relating to the increase in salary for the monitoring officer's post.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Keel? No? In which case, please move your recommendation, and once it's seconded, you may make your speech.
Thank you. Yes, as I've just stated, the resolution is that Council approves the Ryedale District Council pay policy for 2022-23 as detailed on pages 3 to 8, including the amendment relating to the increase in salary for the monitoring officer post. And I believe I've got a seconder for that resolution.
Is that seconded?
I'd like to second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burr.
Thank you. I'd just like to, at the start of what I'm going to say, to reiterate, I think, what our chair has said, which I think is extremely important to proceedings this evening. I'd just like to make it absolutely clear that we are not here tonight to discuss any individual officer's pay, as it is totally inappropriate to do so. We are simply here to approve the policy that is in front of you. As I said, a separate paper has been provided, which explains how directors' pay is determined, and it's very comprehensive, and I think if members have read that, they will understand that process completely. But I would like to emphasise a few points which I feel are important to the policy and why we must approve it this evening. Firstly, full council is only responsible for the confirmation of the appointment of the head of paid service, and i.e. the chief executive and the deputy chief executive. All other appointments are the responsibility of the head of paid service. So our responsibility tonight is purely to approve the pay policy as laid out by our HR department based on the relevant local authority pay scales. Under the Localism Act, we absolutely have to approve this policy this evening, as today is the last day when it can be approved. With regard to the head of corporate governance and monitoring officer role and the amendment made to the salary, when the previous head of corporate governance and the monitoring officer left, this role proved very difficult to fill. But it is an absolutely essential role for this council in order to fulfil all our statutory duties. So an interim officer was appointed via an agency. With regard to the permanent role, we advertised this role on 2 occasions, with the initial advert having its closing date extended due to lack of interest in the post. The initial advert was on the basis of a lower pay range, but also a much narrower job remit. Sadly, we received no suitable applications in the first recruitment round, and following discussions with HR colleagues, a review of similar posts in local authorities in the area, a review took place, the remit of the role was broadened, and a re-evaluation of the post was undertaken. We subsequently received only 1 suitable application in a second round of advertising, and unfortunately the candidate withdrew their application before the interviews. So, by way of explanation, following an assessment for suitability, the interim role holder was considered for the role of permanent head of corporate governance and was successful in securing this post. The current post holder continues to work on an agency basis for Ryedale District Council at the moment and will take up an RDC contract from the 26th of April. A report will be taken to full council next week on the 7th of April, seeking member consent to also appoint the current interim role holder to be a permanent monitoring officer for Ryedale District Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. Does anyone wish to speak in favour or against the motion or propose an amendment? Councillor Oxley.
Yeah, I have a question, Chair, if I may. Is it all right to ask a question? Are we at that stage?
We've gone past questions, actually, Councillor.
Well,
Oxley.
I won't bother then.
Sorry. Right, Councillor Goodrick.
Thank you, Chairman. I did raise a query with the monitoring officer and I haven't had a reply to it.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrick. Yes, I did send an email in response to your query, and I can send that again to you this evening as soon as this meeting has finished. The actual sentence that you were referring to relating to the joint role of the Chief Executive between Ryedale and North Yorkshire Council is in the annual governance statement report. However, please do feel free to make any amendment you wish if you would wish this added to any other report. But I did respond to you later that day. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favour or against the motion? Well, as the motion's been moved and seconded, I think we'll put this to the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
For.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
For.
Councillor Arnold.
For.
Councillor Burr. Sorry, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Burr.
Councillor Oxley, I did hear you say that, and you were given sufficient time to ask questions earlier. I did say, has anyone any questions for Councillor? You did have the chance. I can't imagine why. Perhaps because they can't have their own way. I can't imagine any other reason. Can we carry on with the vote, please? We're taking it to the vote now. Can we carry on with the vote?
Councillor Burr.
Vote. We've taken it to the vote. She's asking you how you...
With all the walkouts, etc., I actually didn't hear you call my name. I'm for it, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Cleary. No. Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockra. Councillor Duncan. Councillor Frank.
For.
Councillor Goodrick.
Abstain.
Councillor Graham. No. Councillor Keel.
For.
Councillor Mason.
For.
Councillor Middleton.
For.
Councillor Oxley. Councillor Potter.
For.
Councillor Rain.
For.
Councillor Ryby.
For.
Councillor Thackeray.
For.
And that's everyone, Chairman.
Madam Chairman, could I just make a comment, please?
Sorry, who's that speaking? Oh. We'll just get the result of the vote
All right.
first, please, Councillor Thackeray.
Chairman, that's 14 votes for and 2 against. 2 abstentions, sorry.
Okay. So that is carried. Then the that's carried. Yeah, that's okay. Saying that, yeah, I'll allow that. Yeah. Councillor Thackeray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like it to be put on record and to find what other members think. But at the beginning of this meeting, you addressed all members and suggested that we should treat each other with respect. And I don't think all the time that I've been at this council, I've ever seen such a rude, disrespectful behaviour from members of this council. And I hope, having been hauled over the coals myself once before, that those individuals are severely reprimanded and have to stand up in public, like I did, and apologise to members, and apologise to members of the public who might be watching it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thackeray. I think that will probably happen. Councillor Mason.
I think I'd like to put on record exactly the same thing. I think disrepute charge should be put on those councillors tonight, the Conservative Party members that are here tonight. I think their behaviour has been absolutely disgraceful. It's been a complete waste of time, effort and money of taxpayers.
Absolutely. Councillor Ryby.
I apologise, but could you just identify to me the reason we had this meeting? What was the cause of the meeting? Was it normally we would have this extraordinary general meeting, or was it as a result of some move by somebody in this council? Could you explain to me, please?
Elizabeth, would you explain that to Councillor Ryby?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The reason why we call this meeting this evening was because the budget, the financial strategy, which included the pay policy statement, was considered at the full council meeting on the 17th of February. We then had 5 amendments to that, and the last amendment, Amendment E, was for the matter to be considered further by the Policy and Resources Committee. Now, there was sort of some concern for some members of this council that the pay policy statement had not been approved when the financial strategy was approved, and so therefore we had to consider what we needed to do about that. So there was this dispute that some members thought it had been approved, some suggested that it hadn't. We then sent it to the Policy and Resources Committee for further consideration, but full council did not give or cannot give delegated authority for them to have approved it. We had that meeting and it was an exempt part of the meeting, and we still couldn't categorically say that the pay policy had been approved. And so therefore, because under the Localism Act, this is the last day for approval, we reviewed the live stream and we made a verbatim account of the debate in full council in February, and we sought further advice from Barry Khan at North Yorkshire County Council. And so because certain councillors were still debating whether this had been approved, in order to make sure that definitively it had, it proved necessary to call an additional extraordinary general meeting with one item on the agenda to approve the pay policy statement, so that there would be no doubt that it had been approved. And so that was the reason why we had to call this meeting today. Thank you.
Follow up with that. Just to follow up with that, and it's kind of an observation, but I still don't understand whoever was responsible for making this meeting being called, and then we have no, in question time or discussion, there was no objection to the motion, and it was passed without, we could have done it without a vote, in actual fact, after the people walked out. So I think somebody's responsible for creating this meeting. I know what you've just told me, but somebody must be responsible for calling this silly meeting that was unnecessary, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keel, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Unfortunately, slip of the tongue there. Yeah, thank you. I have to say, in all my time on this council, I have never been so embarrassed by fellow members of the council. I just think that behaviour was shameful, in view of especially in view of the fact that I think probably most members do know that it was a member, the leader, in fact, of the Conservative group who effectively made this meeting happen this evening. And to behave in such a disrespectful way, particularly to you as Chair of Council, when you'd already made a statement about respect for other members, respect for officers. I'm absolutely appalled. Total disrespect to the Chair, total disrespect to fellow councillors, absolute disrespect for the public who have tuned in tonight to listen. Goodness knows what they may think of us, but particularly considering the subject matter this evening, that we're here to discuss the pay of our incredibly hard-working officers. To walk out and not vote on that is so disrespectful, considering everything that officers have been through in the last 18 months with COVID, what they're still going through, and working incredibly hard on local government reorganisation. I am ashamed. I don't think I can say any more, but I'm just appalled by what's just happened. Thank you.
Here, I really second that. Councillor Joy Andrews.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, it was a follow-on from Councillor Ryedale. I didn't know whether we can actually name the person who was responsible for us here this evening, or whether it was an exempt and that can't be done. But whichever councillor it was, to actually to kick up such a fuss about this, so that this had to go to P&R and then had to come to an extraordinary meeting where we've all given our time, and then not to comment or even vote on it is wrong. Thank you.
I'll ask the question then. Who was
wait a minute.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were coming to me.
Councillor Burr.
Who is the councillor that
Councillor Burr
caused this?
indicated that she would wish to speak. I'll get back to you. You've already spoken once. I will get back to you.
I think my shock and disappointment has probably been said by most councillors that are actually
left in this chamber and who actually are committed to serving everybody in Ryedale. The least that members who actually got up and decided to walk out and not vote could have acknowledged that the hard work that has been done during the pandemic by our officers. And yes, it's just absolutely appalling that they couldn't have the decency to actually vote on this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Can I ask the question?
Before you blow up.
Can I ask the question? Who was the councillor that caused this meeting? I think we need to know.
We need to ask.
I think we do need to ask. I think it's something that's caused a lot of disruption for a lot of other councillors, an embarrassment for the council. I'm not particularly ashamed because I'm not the one who's walked out. I think it needs to be put on record who and what has caused this situation because it is embarrassing. And I don't think this can be reported in the press now because of restrictions with the election.
No, well, it can't. No, it can't be. We're in Purda. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. I really just want to reiterate what virtually everybody has said, particularly as this is regarding the duty of care to all our officers, not just senior officers, but the staff throughout the council. This is about their pay. I too am absolutely disgusted at the deplorable, disrespectful behaviour and particularly the waste of taxpayers' money by calling this meeting thanks to the actions of Councillor Duncan and Councillor Duncan alone. Thank you, Chair. And I think I speak on behalf of all the Liberal group.
Councillor Ryby, you have spoken once, so can you make it brief? Thank you.
Very brief, thank you, Chair. It's kind of light-hearted what I'm going to say, and it's an observation and a comment on my humour. There was a famous parish council meeting that went viral a year or so ago, and if anybody, I don't have the technical ability to do that, but if anybody has that technical ability, I would very welcome them to do it, and I would supply them the electricity and all the rest of it, if they could do that, because that would be great fun to watch, and we would all get on the television.
I think that would be fun, actually, Councillor Ryby. Well done. Councillor Clark.
Turn my microphone on. I'll just join Councillor Keel in apologising to anybody that's sort of been offended by the fact that we've all been dragged here tonight to discuss this. Do we have a ballpark figure of how much it's actually cost to have brought us all in here this evening? Do we have that as a ballpark figure? I'm not asking to actually find it out if we don't know it, but is there a sort of an average cost that you can just give us off the top of your head?
I think it's the price of the recording, isn't it? We'll send that round. Yeah. We'll send that out to you by email. We'll send it round to everyone, that. Councillor Goodrick.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to be clear. I fully support our staff. My abstention was based on the fact that I did send an email to Elizabeth and she did very kindly respond, but she also said that I would get a response from Harry Rashid, which I didn't get. And I wanted the report to be open and transparent. And I think without that slight adjustment to the report, it wasn't, which was why I abstained. But I fully support all our staff. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrick. So I think we've been all round now. Everyone's had a chance to say, so I don't think we have any other business on our agenda tonight. So we'll close the meeting and wish you all a good night. And I'm sorry that your time has tonight, in my opinion, been wasted.
Thank you.